Welcome, Ashkan Pouya, to Cash and Soul. And I must confess I'm a little bit starstruck here because you obviously are one of Sweden's most successful entrepreneurs. You built up the Serendipity Group, billion-dollar enterprise, and now you have your new venture, Systemic. But not only that, you did it from having been an immigrant from Iran and came here to Sweden at 10 years old. And I only immigrated to Norway, but I thought that was difficult. So I cannot even imagine what it's like to come from Iran to Sweden and that cultural difference. So I'm super impressed of you. And I also actually had a personal interest in you, which came from, we have a common investor, Thomas Christensen at LGT. And he told me about you, and he basically said, okay, so Ashkan's his investment strategy is to go out in nature, chop wood for a couple of days, and then he comes back with a great investment idea. So, and that became curious, and we actually had a meeting booked a couple of months ago that didn't happen. But I've always been interested to see, where do you get your inspiration from for all your investment ideas and what you create in the business world?
I hear maybe he has been talking to some of my colleagues, and that's what they told him. But the ideas come from a whole organization. They really don't come only from me. So my job is mostly the architecture of that organization. And I do come up with ideas, but also other people, and also the process itself sort of throws up ideas all the time. But I think he got that impression from me because I talk a lot about, for example, the people working, or what you told me earlier. If you have people that are sort of balanced, that are using their full capacity, you have just much bigger chance to get the best out of everybody. And I'm really focused on that.
100%. But what's interesting, I think, or at least for me as a businessman, the way I've developed is that I went from being kind of the guy who was like my way or the highway, very much getting from A to B. And then I had a crisis. And after that, I became much more listening, much more in tune with intuition. And that's the kind of what I got from that. It was making a joke a little bit about chopping wood, but what I got from that is I felt that you were a person that is very much in tune with that intuition and when you're making business decisions.
What was your crisis when what did you went through?
Okay, yeah, that's a long story, but I can say, but my crisis was several things. My parents died. I ended a long-term relationship, found a new one, and was also kicked out of my first big creation against my own will, and pretty much landed in the street. So, and then also immigrated to Norway at the same time. So it was a big shift for me, where my career was kind of shattered in one day, and everything, my whole perception of myself was shattered in one day. And it started to question everything about myself, basically, which is the best thing that ever happened to me. So it was really a gift in disguise in a way.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? It's always a crisis that's needed to sort of start to listen and try to value things that are, really of value in life.
Exactly. But so that's why I just felt that you were a person that is very in tune with your intuition, is that true, or is it? How are you working with your intuition?
Intuition is a very broad word used in many ways. So.
But how would you use it?
Human being has many capacities. Some of it is logic, which is worth a lot, used in the right way. But it also has its limitation. It took me a very, very long time to figure that out. I was also, when I was younger, 100% about logic and sort of getting things done. But that's the beauty of age. That sort of when you do that and you tune in. I don't know how it has come that I've sort of, you start to understand the limitations of logic and also the value of intuition. So it becomes a very natural process to get in tune with your intuition. But I wouldn't say in a way sort of that you forget your logic. You don't need to do that. They can work very, very well. They actually strengthen each other a lot. But if you would say logic is sort of like the material world that we live in now, it's like you have a glass of water here, but it's not here at the same time. But if you look into the quantum world, you can have a particle here and there at the same time. Logic doesn't understand that. Logic doesn't take that into account. Whereas non-logic or intuition is sort of better at. Even language is sort of based on logic. That's why it's so difficult to sort of communicate about intuition. You just have to feel into it, and it's very difficult to be taught into it. You just have to feel into it and ease into it and understand the value of it.
What would you say? What is the layers of intuition for you? I mean, because you talked about, and I agree with that there's several types of intuition, and you can mean several things with it. But can you talk about what is your perception of the different layers of intuition?
My perception of how to get in tune with it is to. So if you have a mind that is thinking logically about things all the time, so there's a lots of activity going on, then sort of that activity takes over, and that it's like a bodybuilder. That what makes you strong. Right? You get very strong in logic, but you totally lose a dimension of life, and you see it all the time. You see that sort of you're not making the right decision, even though there was the most logical things to do. But sort of if you can get it to still a little bit, then you start to feel a lot more. And when you start to feel a lot more, you sort of intuitively understand sort of, is this the right thing to do or not the right thing to do? You start to listen to many more aspects than only your mind. And there's a big debate about exactly what those aspects are.
What is it for you? What is it for you? Where do you feel the intuition? Where does it happen for you?
I don't care I don't care for myself. I don't care to dissect it, because that's sort of going into the logic. I just feel it, and it's not sort of in the investment, but how I feel it helps me is that sort of you get in tuned and you start to work with the right people. You start to sort of interact with lots of the right people that you should interact with. Not sort of the things where your gut feeling says, don't do it, but your logic says do it, and you do it. You just do lots of that. And then sort of the average of what you're doing gets better and better.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. I mean, to me at least, I've experienced that I have different levels of intuition. One is kind of the gut feeling in a way.
Yeah.
Which is, I often use in, is this person somebody I should work with or not, right? Do I want to have ice cream or a cup of coffee? Or it's kind of a feeling, and you've been in the same situation before, and it kind of tells you. But then I have some very even deeper layer that kind of helps me make super complex decisions that I cannot know the outcome of. That's impossible to know. But that's very, very subtle. But when I feel it, oh, okay, that's how it should be. But and for me, that's at least there's for me at least different types of intuition as well, that I listen. Yeah. But the same as you have to be in stillness to really to feel that, because if you're always up in your mind or you're doing stuff all the time, you don't. It's too subtle to recognize it, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is. It's too subtle, and you overflow it with other things. So the more you get in contact with the subtle stuff, the more magical life becomes. Also, it's very cool how both the brain and the body reacts.
Yeah, it was so funny when you came in here. You had this amazing jacket that you bought from. You told me you bought it from these Moroccan herders up in the mountains, and it's completely natural. And we shared it. Both of us have started to feel that having synthetic materials on your body just feels wrong in a way, and so it's really interesting that we both kind of had that sensitivity. And what I would like to ask is when did you start having that sensitivity, and how did it come about?
I felt when I was smaller, I had when I was 10 years old, I had a lot of that sensitivity. But as I sort of grew and built sort of companies and did stuff, I sort of noticed that at some point I a little bit lost. I was very good at decision making, for example. I felt, sort of for a while, I was less good at it, and I just didn't know what has happened. But sort of then I suddenly realized it's I'm just operating too much on logic,
Right.
and that's the cool thing. When we always have to hit a wall to understand that there is a wall at all.
And what was your wall? What happened?
It was a very soft wall. It was nothing sort of very, very drastic that happened. But I sort of, I just felt that I'm not, my best competence is this, to see, how things should be.
Yeah.
Just disregarding lots of, disregarding or weighting different information. This is important, this is not important, etc., etc. But I sort of lost that a little bit.
Okay.
I felt, sort of, I'm not sitting in a room and sort of I have the answers to the things I used to have all the answers to before. What has happened? That was a really turning point for me to sort of.
And when did that happen? How old were you then?
I think I was around 40 years old.
Okay. Yeah. That's really interesting, because I think that was the same thing for me. It happened when I was 40.
It's a quite magical age, 40. Yeah.
And can you describe a little bit more? I'm interested to what made you realize that this, or it was a soft wall, but what was the wall about? What happened in your life at that point?
So it was that I was under a lot of pressure. So, when you get, I've understood later on that sort of when the brain operates under stress, it's actually sort of just wired to then operate on reflexes, to do things that are sort of fast, but you sort of close down your the parts of brain that are around reasoning, around things that take time, but that are sort of valuable human traits. They are also very, very valuable when you sort of do the kind of work we are doing, because that's what we do. You get some things done every day, and then you take a few important decisions, right? It's so you could argue that sort of 99% of what we're doing, we are dependent on those parts of the brain that shut down when you are stressed or when you are under pressure. It's basically stress is the same thing.
And what happened then? Because you realized you were in a lot of stress, and the most important functions of your brain and your how did you change your life?
I understood that later on. That
okay.
The actual physiology of it is that sort of the brain shuts down sort of the blood flow to those parts, and only start to sort of focus on the limbic system, and then you become reflexive and fast. It's you don't have time to think around decisions. You have to just act and do things fast. And the feeling you get is just simply you become well. If imagine when you're angry, right? You can do whatever, and you can say things. And a day after, when you're not angry, you can feel totally. You can feel that you were not that person, right? That's an extreme, but you sort of become dumbed down like that quite a lot by stress. You're doing things that sort of are it's subtle, so you don't get it's not that you do irrational things, but even if sort of you're not at your 100%, if you're at 80% over many days, it really is going to affect your life.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So what do you do? So when you realized that you this pressure, how did you change your life then to kind of, what changes did you make to your life too?
So actually to see it and understand it was very, very important for me. To only sort of wake up to it, to see that, wow, this is not sort of how I should be or how I should operate. And then what you do from there, sort of, then you have this eye on sort of on what you're doing, on yourself all the time. So it's like you watching yourself all the time. And when you watch yourself, you quite easily, you see what you feel, you see how you react to things. It's a kind of a meta-cognition. It sees everything that is done all the time. So when you see that you sort of get an email and how your body reacts to it, then it's also really, really easy to reverse it, to not be reactive to things, to not sort of, then sort of your emotions still themselves a lot, just very, very naturally.
I find that so interesting that you said that you developed kind of a meta part of yourself, observing yourself, your emotions, your thoughts. I mean, that took a long time for me to realize. But did that come in this very quickly for you, or that you just developed this part of yourself that was watching you, or?
No, it's both. It comes. It sort of it happens. You understand it. It's like an understanding. It's instant, right? But then that part becomes stronger and stronger and stronger. So with time, even if sort of you have even a small change in sort of your feelings, you just recognize it immediately. It's like a virus that sort of you don't want to have in your body. If your body feels anger towards you can use anger for, it's like an energy you can use for some things, but it's almost never you need it in a sort of life situation that we are having. If you would fight a bear or a lion or something like that, that would be important.
Yeah.
But you just don't do that. It might be that you have to run away from a very dangerous situation, but sort of it just doesn't happen. And when you need it, so you can do it. It's not that you become incapable of feeling that, but you can do. You just don't have that when you don't need it. You recognize it when sort of it starts to even come into your body, and the body with time gets more and more calm. I do actually sort of, and then you realize how much more you get in tune with your intuition. You understand how much smarter you can get in your decisions, and also how the experience of life, how that changes, because you start to feel a lot more.
Exactly.
Yeah. Actually, I started to sort of understand. Before that, I didn't understand that people can feel very differently. It's when you become very stressed, it's like sort of that the world loses a little bit of its color. It's like it slightly had gone to not full black and white, but sort of, when you just take off some of its color. And then how it can come back and the life can feel much more magical, and your feelings are there. They are much more present, and they are also giving you sort of a dimension of logic or of thinking that you didn't have before. Those kind of things are really magical.
The 100%, and for me it was when I had my big I had a big revelation when I was sitting on my mother's deathbed, and that's kind of what started my watershed experience. But what it was for me a lot was that I was not feeling kind of negative emotions. So I was kind of shutting myself off from, a big kind of package of just stuff that I didn't want to feel.
Yeah.
And I used every possible method not to have to feel that.
Yeah.
Working like a dog. I used sex, everything you think about to not feel that part, right? And when I started to let myself feel that and have, as you talked about, the meta personality, that's okay, wow, now this is coming again. Like you said, life became much more magical.
Yeah.
And I started to see things and feel things in a totally different way. So 100%, can relate to what you're saying.
Yeah.
But I'm interested. How did you? What happened in your life around that time that you started to get that shift? Was it something that triggered it? Was it a specific situation or something you were in at that time? And also, I'm a little bit. How did you change your life when you got this realization? How did your day look before, and how does it look now? So we get the feeling for what, are you sitting meditating for 2 hours every day, or are you out in the bush chopping wood as Thomas thought, or what's happening?
It's not really about what's happening in a day, not that much, because you have control over certain amount of things, but quite a lot of things you just cannot control. And if you want things to happen, you just cannot, be out in the woods chopping wood. Then nothing happens. That's also, it's, if you choose that kind of life, it's also okay. But if you want to sort of change things, and if you want things to sort of happen and use your life for that, then it's then you just have to be in society, living, doing things that you're doing. So it's just much more about what you feel when those things are happening around you. I have not found a better way to explain as a sort of emotional body. So I think it's like this, like a bodybuilder trains their muscles, So if you go and train your muscles, you sort of your muscles become big, because the body starts to build what it's need to sort of build that. It's the same thing with emotions that or feelings, that if you shut down your feelings as you then it's like the body, the hormones, the sort of pathways that are needed for those hormones, they start to sort of atrophy and die, and you start to feel less and less and less. And then you sort of, I just can imagine you can be left with your logic and no feelings. And to me, it's like hell.
Yeah, depression, right?
Depression, yeah. You really, really will. It's life experience will not be good. But that emotional body you should also train, and training that is just by feeling certain things. So first of all is to it's not like shutting down bad feelings, but it's just to not be reactive. So if you're not sort of having this metacognition on it, you can go around and anything, you just bump into a door and you can become angry. But if you're aware of those feelings, you just don't become angry. It hurts a little bit, but it doesn't affect you sort of emotionally. If somebody's angry on the street, they might shout at you, but sort of it just doesn't affect you. And most of the time it's like that. But your body sort of feels when it's time to feel something, and it's and sort of when and then you start to sort of understand that 99% of those things that sort of automatically train your emotional body, you sort of get control over it. You can program it yourself. And then you start to focus on things that sort of makes you feel love, like friendship, like helping somebody, like petting your dog. And then you're sort of much more present in those feelings. And it takes time, but sort of then those feelings get more and more, you start to feel more and more and more. And also sort of if you go with a feeling of calmness or a state of calmness or a state of love in your body, if you have that, it's a sort of enormous protection against anger or frustration and sort of states or feelings that doesn't really serve you. I mean, they serve you a very, very small part of the time, but most of the time they don't serve you.
Yeah.
And so then you can go on in a society. You can do just whatever, but just sort of to get out of your initial mind, you might need to sort of go away for a while. You might just go out
in the woods,
in the woods, and also meditation to me is like that you might want to take some parts of the day off. Could be quite small part, just to sort of reset to a very neutral state. And that's it.
No, but I think it's beautiful how you describe it. And I mean, when I'm sitting here next to you, I feel that you are very calm and present, and I feel so I can really feel that you have that state in you, and it's beautiful. I mean, for me, it was also had to train myself when I went through this I think there was two things. One thing was kind of getting the attention, kind of being able to focus my attention in the right place, right? So actually knowing that the emotions are inside your body, so trying to feel, focus them there. But I also had to kind of train myself to endure, to not,
not to shut down,
to feel, okay, fuck, that hurts, but to still feel that hurts without going away from it. It's like taking a cold shower every morning. It was really difficult in the beginning, but after you've taken the cold shower for 2 months, it doesn't, a little bit like that. That's how it was for me, at least. But you seem to have a very natural so did you have something growing up that taught you this thing, or is it something you taught yourself? Because it seems like it came much more natural to you than to me, in a way.
Yeah, it comes sort of with life. To me, it comes quite. I don't know what natural is in that sense, but it because none of this is sort of natural. You just have to, you think about it, you feel it, you sort of set it right. So I'm not sure if you go around especially in a modern society. I think sort of the natural things is that you will gravitate towards being more and more depressed, more and more of your logic and mind sort of turned on all the time, less and less of your feelings. And I think also in the end it creates sort of a worse life experience for everybody in the society, but also worse decisions and sort of focus that's you told me that sort of about lots of problems that are there in the society, and they are possible to solve, but sort of everybody runs in the same direction as they have done the day before, and that's why it doesn't get solved.
And that's why I think so interesting. How can we get more people to have this shift that you had, from being stressed, from being run by their traumas, and all this stuff? How do you envision? How could we get people to shift from this state of to being in more of a state that you are in, where you kind of where you accept the bad emotions, but and kind of let them go, and can be more inside love and peace. And
I feel with the bad emotions, I must just say it before I forget it, is that also when you sort of when you're in a neutral state, it's actually quite a lot of feeling of bliss. It's sort of when you just feel when it's nothing going around. It is a natural state is quite a good state. But in that, or if you sort of feel a lot of love and that's your natural state, then pain, it doesn't hurt as much as sort of it does otherwise. So when you're in that, it's sort of a little bit of, it's like when you're safe, you can sort of venture out into the unsafe. It doesn't feel, it feels adventurous,
right?
But if you're in a lot of stress and pain, then you try to avoid that. So you shut those feelings down. So that's very interesting to me. That sort of it is there, but you can feel through those feelings, but it doesn't sort of bother you that much. And it could be, anything, anything going around that sort of feels bad, feels much less bad. Although you're not trying to avoid it, you just sort of, you're not trying to avoid anything. You're just trying to avoid a state that sort of
not helpful.
Yeah, exactly.
Not helpful. Yeah, exactly.
So when it comes to how is it possible to sort of change that, I have something with sort of my colleagues.
Okay.
Is that every person who actually starts to work in our company, we have a sort of 10 sessions.
Okay.
Of talking about this stuff with them. So we have a person who's talking about actually sort of that this is the company culture, that sort of you shouldn't run, sort of it's not seen as good as running around, and try to look stressed and sort of, because it can be a sort of culture, to just, you have to look like you're doing a lot, then you're cool, and then things are happening fast. But it's more like, don't try to do anything fast. Somebody, I think, took it from the American Marine Corps in our company. I think it was sort of our administrator said they have a motto that is something like fast is slow, flow is fast, or something like that.
Okay.
And which I tell them that don't forget, fast. Just try to get into a flow. And if you feel somebody is stressed, it's not to put more work on their desk, to actually trying to get them out of that state is the first thing every colleague, should do.
Wow.
And for themselves also, that, you're not good. If you're in that state of mind, that's not the time for you to take decisions. Funny enough, when you're in that state, that's when you want to take all the decisions, just like
100%. Yeah.
And you just consciously should avoid, you should know that, I'm not in the best state of mind to make decisions now. It's sort of,
I love that you have that as a first. So you have like a 10 session course, and
10 session course where what we try to do is to sort of create that awareness that, you can actually handle the world like this, but also a culture within the company that sort of a little bit sets the stage. And for us, it's been really, really good. So I feel that, when people are calmer, when they are kinder, just the experience of working together is much better. The experience of every other organization interacting with you is very different. And also, it's very seldom sort of you just the need for policies and people, sort of telling people what to do and what not, just sort of going down. It's very seldom people who, feel lots of kindness and love, they just don't go around automatically thinking, now I'm going to do this and that. You just get a compass that is produces the need to sort of try to judge things and say, this is good, this is bad.
It's really interesting because, and I really love that. I mean, because the first thing of, like you said, is getting people to become aware, this meta-cognition, as you call it. And would you say that the people that come into your company, the people that you employ, are already aware of this stuff, or do you help them get aware of this meta? So when you hire a new person, typically, are they aware of this second level of cognition, or do you help them become aware?
No, they are not aware. You just have to tell them about it. Also, I'm just to make it clear, I'm not forcing anybody. So it's not sort of they have to. It's voluntarily. So it's some people just don't feel the need for it, and it's okay. You just don't need 100% of the company to be that to sort of build the culture. You need sort of a.
How much percent do you need? That's interesting.
It's very funny. I've seen that sort of if you have a adapter phase of 15%.
Yeah.
That's enough for sort of for a but that's research about sort of big things going on in society. If you're a core of 15% of the society, then sort of the rest will accept it.
Exactly.
And so we have a lot of, and we really try to also make it not being sort of a thing that you can choose it, but if you don't choose it, you're not one of the cool guys. So everybody just do what they do. Just sort of. But the funny thing is that sort of people value this usually when sort of they hit a wall of some.
That's when they come and say, "Okay, maybe I need this."
Yeah.
And what is it based on? Is it based on these 10 sessions, or do you have any? Is it based on, I don't know, Buddhist philosophy? Is it based on, or is it just Ashkan's?
No, it's the funny thing is that you could actually look into any religion, any philosophy of those, and those things are there.
The same.
It's very, very fun. They are same and they are there. But what we have sort of. My sister, she was a trained psychiatrist, but sort of doesn't want to work with people at that stage. It's a lot of things to do earlier. And so we have a group of 3 people that are really good at this. They are called the True Vibration Academy.
True Vibration
Academy, yes.
Okay, wow. I love that name.
We are working together with them. They are doing actually this, but also we are very sort of we are very close, and we have a very close relationship. And they are really good, but they are focused on it, and they are developing it all the time. And they are because also it's a sort of a strange thing. In this is not a therapy, but sort of it's close to that people might want to say things that sort of you don't want to say to a boss or an employer. So that's why it's so good to have sort of some external persons that and I mean it all becomes quite simple after a while, but it's quite nice.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. And it sounds like you implemented a lot of this like conscious leadership and things like that. But I'm also interested in the kind of spiritual connection and what is your, because all of this, like you said, all the religions have the same, which I agree with. I mean, all religions are fundamentally, what's behind them are fundamentally the same. And to me, spiritual experiences are not something we believe; it's something we experience. And if you don't have a real experience of spirituality, it's not, to me, real.
Yeah.
So I'm a little bit interested in what's your spiritual experience? And what is your yeah.
I think it's sort of, I have come to believe, this is a belief, but I'm not sure. It's because you see all these things in different religions, as you say, converging so much with what sort of the things we have been discussing now. That's not necessarily is religious at all. But what it all leads to is sort of, it's almost like you get new senses. You get more and more of a sort of, you get new senses, and you can experience new things, and you can come into contact with much more subtle aspects of life. So I've come to believe that sort of the real job of religion maybe was that. Maybe that's, and you're absolutely right that sort of when you start to really get into those subtle stuff, it becomes like a spiritual experience. Then you really start to feel the magic of life.
Exactly. And would you like to share some of the experiences that you had, or what senses you've developed, like you talked about?
It doesn't matter so much, So to me, what it matters, because I think that's sort of what then takes it into belief. I think sort of the only important thing is that when you go through life, it's sort of a wasted life if you just cannot get to those senses. So I think the only important thing for me, if somebody, ask me of something religious or spiritual, and so it's sort of my only thing to do is to sort of to get you to experience that rather than tell you how it feels. I don't even want to make suggestions, what that is and what it feels, and
because you mean that you're saying that if you tell me what your experience is, that would block me from having my own experience, or
well, maybe, or not necessarily, or also the mind is a funny thing. It's sort of if you drink this water and think it's very good for you, then it becomes good for you. So it's also important to sort of a little bit without suggestions. If you feel it, if you see it and your friends see it and another one see it and nobody has told you that, it becomes much more of a reality than if I tell you and then you see it because I told you.
Yeah. No, that's true. But I mean, to me, what you're talking about is spiritual experiences, and I think to me also, life is a spiritual experience, like you said. But I'm also a little bit curious about when you walk. I mean, we both kind of live in this investment world, and I come from working 17 years in the private equity space, and with growth companies, and it's a very much a linear logic, stress levels, high activity level. How is it for you to interact with that world? Because you're part of that world also. And how do you kind of combine those two worlds of being in, but you're talking about the loving, open heart state, and then coming to, with all these people that are maybe not in that state. How does that work for you?
No, it's really easy, I don't think sort of it's not that I have to be in a state that any other person is in order to be able to interact, or in order to sort of have a meeting or to get things done. It's actually, for me, is the opposite. I think it's, imagine if you're a founder of a company and I'm going to invest into it, or if I'm going to buy your company. It's sort of if I understand and feel what your fears are, what you sort of, if I have a just sympathetic view on you, it just raises my chances to have a connection with you at all. So the more I think you can connect with people, the more you can think you can do things together. So it makes lots of things easier rather than more difficult.
Because for me, sometimes it sounds like you may be much more grounded than I am, but I can often feel when I come into a room with a lot of people with this kind of stressed energy and maybe, the kind of, let's say, scarcity mindset, and maybe, a little bit closed.
Yeah.
I feel like I take up that energy a lot.
Yeah.
And I have a trouble kind of, you seem very good at that, fencing yourself off from that. But I often, and that can also be when I'm walking around in a really stressful place, like in an airport, it's like, oh, fuck, everybody's stressed. And I take up that stress.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel that? Or?
No, I understand what you mean. And I feel that to a degree. But to sort of, it affects me less and less and less.
And how is that? How do you manage to do that? Because to me, it's like, I sometimes I'm open, and sometimes I just need to shut myself down or create some kind of wall because there's so much energies around me. So I'm really interested. How do you manage that?
It's so imagine if you have what happens in your body is that sort of you come in contact with that kind of you just see the stress going on, and your body also starts to recreate that in yourself. But sort of if you just have a stronger sort of pathways creating calmness and love and things like that, it just sort of you feel that it's happening. Maybe still creates a little bit of stress, but that's 10%. And then this other feeling is 90%. So you see it and you feel it. But maybe when you start out, building that emotional body, that's sort of that's 10% and this is 90%. And then it just throws you off.
But what technique did you use? Any technique to build that resilience? Because obviously you're very resilient to all these energies that are in a space of a day. And for me, it's also become that, like before I had this kind of, I could have like 7-8 meetings in a day, like bam, 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 bam.
Yeah.
I'm not able to have more than, if I have 3 or 4 meetings, I'm drained.
Yes, but don't worry about it. I think you might be.
But you seem to be. Yeah.
Of I think if you do it right, when you're through it, you can have 20 meetings a day. Because what sort of, imagine if you just go a day in your life and doing whatever you do. If you're in the woods and you take a walk and then you play golf, hey, I don't know what you do, so you do things. You don't get tired of life, right? You go still and eat a dinner in the evening, and then you have still more time, and then you do some other fun thing.
Yeah.
You never get tired of fun things, right? So I think what really makes you tired is sort of this emotional roller coaster. It's not an emotional roller coaster. It's just also emotions that you don't feel. It's just focus, stress, that might be there subtle. And then when you go through the meetings, it becomes, of course, very tiring. And in the beginning, sort of when you are used to do it that way, and at the same time you're aware of sort of how tired you become, then you feel you can do many few, and then you become tired. But as you start to listen sort of to that, and as you start to sort of be able to having those meetings with much more ease, then you can actually become much, much more productive. You just can go and work many hours, your need for sleep sort of diminishes slightly. And if you need to sleep, you wake up and you are quite fresh, even sort of if you have slept. If you have to, you can.
But I'm
do that.
interested in. I'm still a little bit because obviously, yeah, you came. It started with you becoming a little bit like you were a little bit like me, not very aware of your emotions or your thoughts, and then you suddenly became aware, and then obviously you trained yourself to have this and I like the name of the company we're talking about, the brain waves, that it's waves,
True vibration.
True vibration, exactly. So it's vibrations that you're picking up, right?
Yeah.
So can you say something just if you're going to give an advice to me that obviously I have some stuff to work on to be as relaxed as you are, how can I do that? How can I be as relaxed as you are with these 100 crazy people?
Vibrations, it's not that they are not there. They are there. But I think it's many more things than that. So I think just not to focus on that and sort of be focused on how you feel inside and be aware of that, and having techniques to sort of to grow those states that you like to be in. So imagine if you feel that you like to be loving, for example. Yeah. And whenever you think about your pet, you feel a very big love, or your daughter, or anybody. Actually, it's a very interesting exercise, but because with time you feel that you can sort of, the more people you can use for feeling that feeling, the better it is for you. But in order for you to feel that, your feeling must be genuine, right? So if somebody comes in and asks if you want a cup of coffee, your natural reaction to him or her is that sort of, it's a person you love. You want to answer in a loving way. So then you sort of you become a pleasant person also to be around. But you notice how it's valuable to sort of start to love everybody. You want to love everybody because that's the feeling you want to have inside yourself.
Yeah.
And sort of when that part of you becomes very strong, you become very resilient too. So that becomes your state. That is your state. And you feel very naturally if you sort of start to get out of it, and then you can start to use your techniques, and then you can think about your kids and or some nice thing they said, or what you're gonna do to sort of your employees when you meet them, anything like that fills you with a very beautiful feeling. Yeah.
I must say I really love this conversation, and I'm feeling so inspired by you, and I felt I would continue to. I felt I learned a lot in this conversation from you, and it's amazing to have a super successful business leader that feels the feeling is like a monk coming into the room with this great presence and love. And so thank you for that.
Thank you so much.
Really enjoyed having you here.
Thank you very much.
And if you ever think of writing a book about your whole thing, I will definitely buy it. That's for sure.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you so much.